There was an interesting thing I heard recently by a gentleman by the name of Grant Mittenhauer, I think is his last name, but um, he framed it in a way I thought that was absolutely brilliant. So it's a little to what you were saying, and it was um, uh, strategic intention and absolute detachment from the result.
Boom.
And I thought that was very well
Boom.
said. You know,
Boom.
it's like
Boom.
strategic intention with absolute detachment from the result. And I
Boom.
was like, man.
That's
And
money.
I think part of that is us being attached to what the result might be. When we hit record, when we're showing exactly who you are, I mean, as hokey as it sounds, there's a certain amount of vulnerability that
It
we're
is.
putting out there to sort of say, you know, this is where I am, this is who I am, because at the end of the day, our brains are wired for the path of least resistance, right? That's how we survive as a species. What's the least dangerous path? That's what we take, and our brains are doing the same thing. And we might feel fear
Right.
of judgment, tribe, of tribe expulsion, right? Tribe judgment,
Right.
and that's inherent in who we are as a species. We're tribal people, and being a part of a tribe is very important. That's the same reason why people wear Cowboys,
Mm-hmm.
Yankees, Red Sox, right? We're tribal by nature.
Right.
And the thought of within our reptilian brain or within our caveman brain, it's that being detached from the tribe, being expelled from the tribe, being rejected from the tribe meant death.
Correct.
So now our system is attaching not being accepted from the tribe as death when it's not really the same as it was a couple hundred years ago or a couple thousand years ago.
Big
So,
time.
you know, sometimes we have to talk ourselves off the ledge and realize that the vast majority, if not 99% of the things that scare us can't kill us.
Big time.
Right? I mean, nothing's killed us yet. We're
Right.
sitting here right now,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think that that's an important thing. So it's just that idea of the law of detachment, putting in the work, being able to execute on the field and detaching yourself from the result. Athletes are exceptional with this.
Right.
And the elite athletes are the ones that have mastered it. So how do you detach from the result and go back and hit the next serve, right? Throw the next pitch.
Correct.
Get in the batter's box to take the next swing. Jordan, take the next shot.
Big time.
Right? I mean, even if you look at his, you know, what's his field goal percentage? The greatest player of all time. His field goal percentage is what, in the 40s maybe?
Something like that.
Right? And greatest player of all time. And it is that law of detachment that allows him to keep taking shots, keep taking shots. And I think it's our fear of rejection and expulsion and rejection from the tribe that a lot of people don't think about. Because that was survival once upon a time. But now it's is it necessary to thrive? Some would argue that it is. But I think it just depends on who the person is and what value they bring to the tribe. You'll be welcome to the tribe.
Big time.
Or make your own.
Yeah, big time.
Let's make a tribe.
Seriously, and it's not encouraged enough. You know, it's really not encouraged enough to get vulnerable and to be a beginner. The older we get in life, where we're kids and we're young, it's just a part of the way in which everything is, because we're learning everything. Everything's new. We're not afraid to fail. We're not afraid to mess up. We're not afraid because we don't expect ourselves to have it right. I think we get stuck in a little bit of comparison. We see people doing things at a high level, and it makes us feel like competitively, human nature wise, just that natural competitor. It's like, okay, well, I'm not good at that yet, because if that's good, I'm on a whole different scale. And so then we almost talk ourselves out of getting started and being a beginner, because that individual, whoever it is that has obtained a certain skill set that we like, has been through that beginning process.
Right.
But I think that philosophy, what you just said, is so good to put it out on just plain view, put it just flat to where you can understand the phases. I think if somebody handed us a blueprint or a document that said, okay, this is where you want to go, cool, over the course of 15 years, bam, this is what your process is going to look like. Do that to the T, and you're going to have exactly what you want. If we had like a fortune teller that could help us out. But we don't. But I bet we would see some of those first phases would include a little bit of doubt, a little bit of hesitancy, a little discomfort from the vulnerability, a little bit of rejection, personal rejection, more so than public. But it'll show you the phases, and if it had something associated to some of the pains that come along with making yourself vulnerable, to kind of talk to the feeling. Because I think that detaching away from the outcome, I think, is overcoming a feeling. And I think sometimes we don't understand what the feeling is. It could be insecurity, it could be anything. It's a natural feeling, but we're not accustomed to being trained to really identify it and then adjust it. So once we feel it, we back off. It's that, and that feeling may come from that innate foundational, programming from back in the day. Where hey, if you're tribal, if you're directed from the tribe, that does equal generally harsher consequences than today. And so we might have that same kind of wiring of like, oh no, that feeling, oh that's danger. Let me stay away, right? Versus let me get better.
That's a huge point. And that reminds me of this idea. Whenever we do feel some type of emotion,
right?
I think a lot of us over characterize and put it in the fear bucket.
Yeah.
Right? When someone, I don't remember who it was, so don't come for me if this is something that you said.
Right.
They started classifying that feeling of butterflies, right? Because what's the difference between butterflies, you're about to do something great, and butterflies that you might be, doing something you're a little worried about. And what he said was, whenever he felt that feeling, it was just excitement. If you can define that emotion as excitement, then you can dive down and say, what's causing this excitement?
Right.
The minute you call it fear, it's already negative. What's the difference between fear and excitement? Excitement can be negative or positive, right? So I thought that was a really interesting thing. The minute we label it as fear, as scared, as anxiety, right? That's what people love throwing that around nowadays. Like, I have anxiety. Like, the minute you say that and put it into your mind that you have anxiety, now you're telling your subconscious mind you're walking around like you have this thing
it's a problem
that you can't get rid of. Exactly. Right. And you're saying it from that versus, in the business world where instead of, okay, well, what are the issues we're dealing with? Right. Or instead of saying, what are the challenges we're dealing with?
Opportunities, they started calling
opportunities, right? Exactly.
A little reprogram.
Right. So now when we feel that emotion, can we take a chance and say, all right, why am I feeling this excitement? And then dive down to what you said, because that list can be 10 different emotions long.
Big time.
Right? What is it that's causing me to do that? And it's very interesting to be able to define what emotion that is, to decide where you're going to go. Now, to take one step back to another thing you said was, if we had the blueprint of what was going to actually show up, it would make a lot more sense.
Big time.
And that, I think, is the beauty of access to biographies, access to documentaries, access to people that have been down a certain
the road, yeah.
Right? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the exact outcome, but it can give us an idea of the trials and tribulations along the way.
Big time.
Right? So to help train ourselves, I think it's unbelievably important for a person on their journey to look at other journeys, read about other journeys, hear about other journeys, to be able to step and say, it's just part of a journey. Right. This happens to be part of my journey.
Big time.
And when you can frame it that way and think of your life as a journey and think of your life as a story and think of your life as an adventure and think of the places that you're in as chapters in your life.
Big time.
It frames and understands and says, I don't even know what the next chapters are.
Right.
They're going to be fire.
They're going to be fire.
They're going to be fire. And there's something down there that I haven't even thought about yet.
Big time.
But it's coming. And being able to see some others that have been down that path, had trials and tribulations, were faced with challenges, were faced with adversity, right? Because at the end of the day, especially for men,
yes,
it's adversity that builds that person.
Big time.
Right? Batman was only Batman because they killed his parents.
Right.
Right. Why does every superhero have a tragedy story? Right. Superman is orphaned because his home blows up.
Right.
Right. There's an origin story to every hero.
Big time.
Right. I mean, even with Gladiator becomes who he is after they kill his family. Then he becomes the savior of Rome.
Right.
Right. There's always something that occurs in the hero's life. So when that occurs in your life, thank God for it.
Right.
And say, oh, okay, this is my hero's journey. This is happening to me because.
Big time.
And a lot of us that have been through challenging situations, it's tough to do in the moment. If you get rear-ended and you get out of your car and you look at the damage that's done and it totaled your car and you think about everything you put into that car and the resources and the money and the gas and the tolls and everything that you put into that vehicle.
Big time.
And now someone just took your vehicle out. And it's hard to be able to think to yourself, there's a lesson here, but that's something that we have to train ourselves to think as men, so that when things happen, not if things happen,
when
being able to decide and try and figure out, why is this going on? And if I don't know, God knows.
Big time.
So just thank you. I don't know why, but thank you. And now how do I take this and build myself into the superhero that I'm meant to be?
100%. 100%. And it's the hero's journey. That's a great way to put it. And it's a great way to look at it, because when you attribute it to being a hero, meaning doing something amazing, doing something great, doing something you've been called upon to do, then you can look at it as a noble thing, right? And so that can kind of fight against that insecurity of like, okay, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Is it purposeful? Is it impactful? Well, you're on a hero's journey, and that's a part of it. You have to truly believe it, though. And I think that's another piece to it, is the belief that you can also, that you belong on that path, that you belong on that journey, that you belong a part of that tribe. It's the belief, because a lot of times I don't think people necessarily fully believe that they can match the greatness of who they're reading. And so it almost becomes like fantasy, fable, just fiction that we're start to read when we read these journeys, if we never give ourselves the confidence to say, I can also be him. And then we're just reading stories and oh, okay, well, he's built different. Kind of like how they do people like David Goggins or something who have achieved great things. Oh, they just built different. That's them. They're different. Right? I'm me. I can't do that. It's like, no, you can do that. They're flesh and blood. We're all humans. We put our pants on one leg at a time. We bleed red. We have the capabilities to create, and then seeing somebody create something could show you that, okay, maybe you won't be Superman, right? But maybe you'll be the hero of your own life. And that will make you sleep at night. That will make you sit on your rocking chair at the end of your days and feel good and feel purposeful and pass on, into the next phase of life with happiness and pride and with joy and with, comfort that you gave it all. You did it all. But it takes us understanding that we have to get through that first initial sting, right? And it almost makes me take you to like the game field, any type of level of competing or competition. There's always an activation. Like I know for me, I didn't really feel like I was in the game until it was that first hit. Until that first hit, boom, loosen up the shoulders, boom, get the little head rattled, right? It was the first hit, and I was like, okay, now game time. It's time to go. Respect. You know what I mean? And even like with basketball, or whatever sport you do, it's like whatever it is for you that wakes you up to let you know you're in it. I think that's how we should attribute the discomfort of the journey and the process. Is once you are starting to take steps and you feel confident, you got the momentum going, and you feel that hesitation, that blockade, to your point, get excited. Okay. Now I'm on the path, because I couldn't be on the path if I didn't come up to a hurdle, if I'm not challenged, if I'm not uncomfortable. And so now I've been trying to challenge myself to look at discomfort and more of an embracing it, like bring it on. Like, I'm uncomfortable, good. That means that I'm working. Because if I'm too comfortable and I feel well fed and I'm too relaxed and I'm having a good time, I'm not working. And then you can't even enjoy relaxing. Because you feel like you got work to do. But then as soon as we start working and we get uncomfortable, we run away from that discomfort back to the place that we was at where we wasn't happy. And it's like, nah, this is what we want. You trying to lose weight. That hunger pain is what you want. That's what you asked for.
That's what you asked for.
When your stomach starts growling, your energy get low and your mood changes. This is what you asked for.
And when you ask for strength, you don't get strength. You get challenges that make you strong.
Boom, boom, boom.
Right, completely. So, you said some great points in there. So 3 things came in my mind as you were going through that. Number 1, superheroes, being heroes. Whenever I ask somebody, or especially for kids, if you ask a kid who his favorite superhero is, and you look at the world of superheroes, the one that I personally find most interesting, and the one I think that most men should resonate with, even though I don't like shitting on people, you know that about me, right?
I feel you.
But at the same time, I think the one that can be most relatable is going to be Batman. Why? Because Batman doesn't have any superpowers.
No.
Batman is just a man. Superman has superpowers. This other superhero can, eye raise. Do whatever Wolverine's got some stuff coming out of his hands. This one can fly. And, who's the guy that throws from Incredibles?
Oh, with the ice,
Ice guy,
Friezo or something like that.
Friezo, right?
Friezo,
Bang, bang, bang,
uh-huh.
Friezo over here, right? Everyone's got something
Right.
that if a boy is looking at it, they don't
Then
have
what I
and could
got.
never have.
Right.
But the thing about Batman is that he's just a man, and I like that and I respect that. Number two is going back to the hero's journey, talking about little kids. I think the way we raise our little kids, and anyone that has children out there can testify to this. I'm quite sure, pretty confident,
Yeah. For sure.
that they run around wanting to be a hero,
Big time.
right? It's in
Put the
our
towel around
blood, right? Superman,
Fast the
Batman,
towel, yeah.
Spider-Man. It's
Yep.
in our blood to be heroes, and somewhere along the lines, life, adults, right? Not blaming the parents,
Big time.
adults and culture and the world gets them out of that hero's mentality because they're chipped away at the fact that they can't be a hero. So they end up settling back into a life. And I think there's a difference between being a hero and just living a life. And I think that culture, society, adults project that on children. And the third point is that for those people that really study the Bible and look at the Bible, I mean, what does it say? Jesus says, be childlike.
Big time.
Be childlike, not childish. I think that's a huge epidemic we have right now in our culture. This childlike and childish.
Right.
I think
Don't
a
even
huge
behave as a
percentage of
child.
our population is acting childish,
Right.
childlike, of wonder, of
Imagination.
of heroism,
Courage.
of courage, I mean, have you ever meet a little kid and they want to do everything, and they say, and if something happens, you ever see two little kids argue, and if they get into a fight, right, and they say, oh yeah, I hate you. 5 minutes later, they're like, hey, you want to go on the back swing? Like, yeah, let's go.
Right.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Yeah.
They forgive on a level that I can only aspire to.
Big time.
Right? You see these little kids, and you're like, you see them arguing and pulling and fighting, and next thing you know, 5 minutes later, they're laughing. The level of forgiveness that children embrace, that's inherent in who we are, we lose through the years.
I agree.
So when I hear be childlike, those are the things that I aspire to be. I aspire to be more forgiving. I aspire to be more courageous. I aspire to be more heroic. And I aspire to be more loving. Because a little kid will walk up to a total stranger in Starbucks and say, hello, I love you.
Right.
Just that wonder, that curiosity, right? To be more curious about things. So when I hear be more childlike, those are the characteristics that I think we should focus on to be more aligned with that young energy.
Yeah.
That vibrancy when a little kid walks in, and it's a certain energy of love, of curiosity, of wonder, of joy, right? It's joy at Christmas.
Big time.
That's the energy that's created around the wonder of Santa Claus. And I think we lose that sometimes. I think reality beats it out of us.
Oh, yeah.
And no one's to blame for it. We live in a rough world. Reality can beat that out of us, but I think it's up to us to be able to harness and look at what are those characteristics of childlike that we want to continuously say, am I being heroic? Am I being courageous? Am I being forgiving? Am I being playful? And all of those are what we can look back on, especially being heroic for men.
That's a great point. And that's, childish and childlike, that's a hell of a contrast because it's very true. Right? You don't want to behave as a child, but you can operate and have certain, pillars, that are, standardized in your life that we get away from, after childhood, which is like the true authenticity. A lot of times children are looking to have fun, right? They're trying to make fun out of the world. They're trying to enjoy themselves. That's why imagination is at its highest, because they are so curious, but they're curious for enjoyment, right? And a lot of times it's not until we get towards maybe the end of our days that we look back and we're like, well, I'm not really having a lot of fun right now. I'm not really enjoying the process of being an adult or of this goal chasing that I'm doing. I'm not having fun. It's not enjoyable to me.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it. So then they say, well, let me try to figure out how to increase and have a better quality of life. And so everybody goes back to childhood. And a lot of times you might get therapy and it might help you identify where you kind of got misdirected. But to your point about, parental influence is a lot of times, well, yeah, trying and failing at something, or trying to achieve your goals and then not quite hitting it, and then spending a lot of time, wasting a lot of time, spending your tires going this way and then that way, it will make you, out of love, try to protect, your little cub, because you're
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I don't want you to spend 30 years trying to chase down this path that I haven't figured out the appropriate resources, tools, and skill sets to teach you how to get to, because I wasn't able to completely fulfill my process.
Mm-hmm.
So now let me try to protect you from wasting your time and put you in a space. And from what I learned as an adult, right? Let's settle over here. You can live a good, healthy life, a
Mm-hmm.
different way. You don't have to do all of this, but it kind of puts out that fire, that inspiration. It kind of makes life more of a job than enjoyment, right? And we can have a job and still enjoy it, but I think that a lot of times the fire gets put out from a place of love, from a place of protection.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't understand that even the person that's putting that fire out may not be completely happy. They may be a little depressed. They may be going through some mental health issues. They may be going through some things that they're not understanding, that they might now be serving to the kids by putting their fire out too soon,
Yeah,
because they might be in a position where they're looking for a little bit more out of life.
completely.
So,
And
so instead of looking at that adolescence and that youthfulness and saying, okay, I lost that spark, let me admire that spark, let me admire that courage. Now let me take a little bit of a page from the ambition book of a child, and now let me
right.
get reinvigorated, re-inspired to then go and pursue something in my life where we put that fire out. And the one last point I want to make about it is the authenticity piece. I think that when you are a child and you're having fun, it's just about, okay, what can I do for enjoyment? What do I want to do? How do I want to express myself to feel good? How do I want to express myself to just be the fullest expression of whoever, Alex, Jason, whoever I want to be? And you do it without any thought about perception or how anybody cares. It's all about you. And the philosophy of humans is, you don't that doesn't have to be selfish, because if we're all here to give back in some kind of way to the whole ecosystem and environment, then doing you is actually what the world needs you to do. But we need more people to do them without expectation, or some type of assumption of what they need to receive. Just do you, get it out, be a resource, because that's what we're all here to do, is to be resourceful and to give our gift, or give our interest, or give whatever it is that we want to give back, and not getting lost in the work around it, or the overall process. Just
Mm-hmm.
do, just go, be authentic. Whatever's in there, get it out, pursue it,
Yep.
and live.
So couldn't agree more.
Mhm.
3 points around what you said was number one, when you were mentioning the flame that children have, and
Mhm.
exactly, is whether or not are we fanning the flame,
Right.
or we are unintentionally.
Yeah.
Again, I say this to say, I think the vast majority of adults
Mhm.
are not ill-intentioned,
Right.
right? They're not out there thinking like, how
No.
am I going to kill my kid's dream, or how am I going to? I'm not implying that they are, but there are times where that happens, right? It's a crabs in the bucket
Yep. Yep. Yep.
conversation,
Yep. Yep.
right? Where inadvertently the people you surround yourself could very well be pulling you back into the bucket because they've never been outside of it.
Big time.
And they're doing that unintentionally, but it still happens.
Right.
So it doesn't make it right or wrong. It makes it a fact, but it makes it understandable to say, if that's where you are, where am I doing that to other people in my life? And are people doing that to me? Number one. Number two is that idea of childlike enthusiasm and dreaming.
Right.
Right? We don't dream much anymore.
No.
Right? Really, we think about um, dreaming as something that happens to us. When you go to sleep,
Mhm.
have a dream.
Right.
Did you control that dream? No, you just had a dream in the middle of the night.
Right.
Right? So is dreaming something that is happening to us while we're sleeping, or are we dreaming active verb? Right? Are we taking time throughout our day to sit and dream? Right? It's an interesting thought, right? It's not anything that adults usually will sit down and talk about.
Correct.
You're like, oh, I'm dreaming about going here. I'm dreaming about this. And I think if we use that word dreaming and substituted it in, or used it in the same context as visualization, you hear that from a lot of people that have achieved at a very high level.
Big time.
They had to visualize it. Had to visualize it. Conor McGregor, right?
Right.
Any of the successful business people. Well, you had to visualize it. You had to visualize it.
Right.
So what you're saying is that you were dreaming about it.
Big time.
But let's take the idea of dreaming as a verb
Hmm.
instead of something that occurs out of your control.
Right.
If you go to sleep and you just have a dream, what happens if you wake up from an unpleasant dream? How does your energy feel?
Right.
Not good. Now, that should be a perfect example of the power of your thoughts. So if that's the case and I can't control those, what do I do with the ones that I can control?
Hmm.
That's number two. And then the last thing I would say is there's been a new practice that I've been saying in my mind that I'm hoping it catches fire a little bit
Yeah.
because we talked about what a person does, their job, where they work, and
Big
something that
time.
I've started to put out. And again, I hope it catches fire and this gets to a whole
Hmm.
whole group of great people is framing it differently, saying what's your work
Right.
or what's your work,
Hmm.
and I think it's a slight adjustment in words,
Okay.
but at the same time, it's saying, I don't want to look at work as a noun.
Yep.
Where do you work? I work in that building,
Big
right?
time.
Who do you work for? I
Right.
work for this company.
Hmm.
I love this idea of looking someone in the eye and saying, what's your work? Because that is just more complex of a question because so many people out there that put in so much hard work on their families, on their fitness, on
Hmm.
their income producing
Big
activities,
time.
right? But we're only saying work as the income producing activity
Right.
when the work is your entire body of work. And I love this idea of looking somewhere and say, hey, what's your work?
Right.
What is it that you work on that defines your life?
Hmm.
When you are on your deathbed, what are you going to point at and say, that was my work?
Right.
Not where that's where I worked. That's not who I worked for. That's my body of work.
Hmm.
And I think if we reshape the way we look at what we work on a daily basis, it's going to change how we work on it.
Hmm.
As I'm building out my body of work,
Right.
artists are exceptional with
Big
this.
time.
That's what they do.
They
It's the
define
artist
themselves by
body of
that.
work. Someone that creates music, right?
Right.
It's their work.
Big
It's their
time.
body of work. It's what they've created. I think if we make that slight shift into thinking of our lives as a movie, as artwork, as us being the character of our story,
Big time.
it can change the perspective. Again, not if, but when we're faced with trials and tribulations, when we're faced with challenges, when we're faced with things we weren't expecting.
Hmm.
And when we do that, then when they occur, it's almost part of the adventure, and you smile and be like, man, this is going to make a fun chapter.
Oh yeah.
Let's
Oh yeah.
go.
Oh yeah. I love the chapter comparison because that's, you can compartmentalize things, and we can compartmentalize things. You don't let something be too large, right?
Yeah,
You don't
man.
let it like weigh you down and hold your head down. You made some great points because you look like, okay, whatever I'm going through now, whether it's great or whether it's not so great, it's going to change,
That's
right?
it.
And we take those same behaviors and that momentum into each chapter and just have consistent flourishing of life. And that's great. That's ideal. But if you're going through any type of waves or challenges or turbulence, just understand it's not going to be always.
And
It's just a
and
matter of time.
and saying thank you for it.